I would say sometimes first-time borrowers are your better borrowers because they're so focused on their deal, right? Like they got one deal and they're super focused on getting it done, and they're very communicative, and it's their first rodeo and they want to make sure they're successful. But I also tend to try to figure out the type of person they are, right?
Outside of like a COVID phenomenon, how are you vetting your GPs at the time? Or like, how do you understand if someone's trustworthy or worth doing business with?
Yeah. So from the syndication perspective, most of the syndications that I invested in were people that I met through networking at that time, like going to different events, looking at their past performance, talking to other limited partners who have invested with them. You know, I was sort of in that world where I was meeting these people, looking at their deal pitch, trying to underwrite the properties. At the end of the day, I'm not sure I was always with the right people. There were some people that weren't able to come out of some of the deals they had, and I did not choose to get in those. But it's tough. You know, I think I like to look at past performance a lot. I like to see the type of person they are and you know, how they're treating other people. I tend to think I have a decent way of shaping a person up.
Right.
But I wouldn't say I have like a book way of doing it.
I mean, I assume you have to do the same from your lending business. Yeah. You have to, for your borrowers specifically, do you lend to first-time borrowers? And if so, is it just like, hey, I'm taking more risk, here's a bit of a higher rate, or is there a different way that you vet them?
Yeah, typically I do lend to first-time borrowers. And I would say sometimes first-time borrowers are your better borrowers because they're so focused on their deal, right? Like they got one deal and they're super focused on getting it done, and they're very communicative, and it's their first rodeo and they want to make sure they're successful. But I also tend to try to figure out the type of person they are, right? Like I go to social media, I look at your social media accounts, I try to talk to other people that know you. A lot of my borrowers come by way of referral. So some of my current borrowers might refer another borrower to me. Right. And I think that's awesome. Like I love that about my business, but I certainly look at your social media. I certainly want to know who you are, where you came from, about your family. I'm not just an asset-based lender. Like I want to have a relationship with you, and I want it to be a long-term relationship, not just a one deal.
When you got into lending, I would assume you found it more attractive than syndications because you have arguably more control over what happens with the money and you have less risk. What encouraged, was it again just diversification, or was there something specific that happened that drew you to be a lender?
Initially it was diversification, and it was like I knew that I had some capital sitting on the sidelines doing nothing, and I wanted to get it to work, but I didn't really want to buy another property at that time. And so I had learned about private lending. I didn't know enough about it, but I found a way to lend that money out, and I did that. But about that same time, I also met a mentor here locally who really took me under his wing and taught me everything about lending, and that just sort of completely changed my mind on where I wanted to put my money in the future.
Interesting.
And so I just started lending.
And that helped with like expedite the sales of your rentals? Like were you like, I could, cash in this equity and put it into lending and make better returns that way?
Yeah. So after COVID, and there was so much appreciation, as I talked about before, it was sort of a no-brainer for me to liquidate that portfolio and then bring that capital into the lending side. And then also, as I got close to retiring from the government in 23, starting my lending business was a goal of mine. And, previously I was lending a lot out of self-directed retirement accounts, self-directed IRAs. And now I'm able to do that through an LLC, and I keep, everything separate. LLC separate from the self-directed accounts. But
how do you choose which one? Is it just whatever money's available, or like, do you have any sort of like method of whether you do it through self-directed or your cash?
Yeah, there's a little different method, and obviously if I'm somehow marketing from like Virginia hard money side or whatever, and the deal comes in, then I'm going to do it with Virginia hard money. I try to keep my family's IRAs, my IRAs working, and we have like the ability to do that outside of the LLC and just keep that money working. So it's not a great answer, but it's relatively simple for me to keep my IRAs completely separate and keep them working.